5 months on the road, over 30,000 kilometers. This is everything that I took to South America. I am indeed home. Imagine that. I survived the trip. Can you believe it? This video is going to be a little bit of a change up. I do still have a couple of videos left on the trip, but right now I am actually preparing for the California BDR. Since I won't be bringing my laptop, I wanted to put up a couple of videos ahead of time, one of which is this one. It's a long one, but if you are heading on a long motorbike trip, international travel, it might help you decide what to take and what you might want to leave at home. Next week's video is all about my new lightweight off-road setup. I hope you like them. All right, well, I'm finally home from my trip, and it's time to start unpacking my gear. A lot of the reason why I want to do this video is to remind myself of what I did and what I got right, what I would change for next time, what I changed on the road, so that if I do a trip like this next time, I'll remember what I did. I always find that these videos are very helpful to me. I always love to see what other people do and the theories that they have about what they packed and why they packed it. I want to talk about some of the things that I really liked, some of the things that I changed along the way, and some of the things that I would do differently in the future. There's a lot of great packing rules when it comes to motorbiking that we all know. Things like, hey, you want to pack light. You're typically packing way more than you need. You want to keep everything balanced and you want to keep all the weight low. But I found that this trip was very different than some of the trips that I normally do, like the backcountry discovery routes. And some of the videos that I've seen online have advice that after doing this trip, I disagree with. And previously, I might have been even saying some of that same thing myself. So one of the big things is versatility and multifunctionality. So when it comes to gear, clothing, everything like that, you want to make sure that it serves multiple purposes so that you can be really adaptable. One of the other biggest things that I found that I really tried to focus on is accessibility and organization. Organizing your gear in such a way that is very accessible so that the things that you need are there and ready to go for you when you need them. The last thing I'm going to talk about is that this is not a backcountry discovery route. I've been so used to packing as light as possible and as minimal as possible that I found on this trip, I actually wish I had more stuff, which is pretty rare to say. Or a couple of things that I won't showcase today are just tools. Those stay on my bike 100% of the time. I've got a tire kit that's underneath my seat, and then I got my actual tool kit that goes right beside in a toolbox right beside my panniers. To start, I have a giant loop tank bag. I've been back and forth on either the giant loop tank bag or I have a Moscow Moto Nomax tank bag. I took this one on the trip generally because it's somewhat waterproof. I'm going to say somewhat waterproof. So this is something that I would actually change to get something that is fully waterproof. But that said, I love the size of this tank bag. And there's a couple things that I did with this tank bag. One of the things that I added to this tank bag, it's not advertised as part of this tank bag, but I really found it was very helpful. I always wanted to make sure that all my stuff in my tank bag, it came with me to Borders. So it was really quick to just zip it off. But then I added just this shoulder strap, which seems like such a silly little addition. But man, was that helpful. You'll be at Borders for hours if you're in Central and South America. And so, not just having to hang on to it is really handy. My Moscow Moto tank bag has backpack straps, same idea, which is really great. But I found this was really, really quick. So I would never even tuck it away. I would just tuck it underneath the tank bag and zip it up. Inside the tank bag, what I wanted to have was, and this changed throughout the trip, but I wanted things that I was going to need for at the border. I wanted electronics and charging equipment, and I wanted snacks and drinks throughout the trip. So inside, this would typically on the motorbike, it was just my charger for my Sena headset and plug that in with a long cable, and then I'd run another charger up to my phone. Right inside, I'd have a hat just to avoid the helmet hair that you'd often get. I'm not generally a hat person, but I did find I wore this quite a bit on the trip. This normally lived on the motorbike. I only brought this in because it's something that I wanted to talk about. I ran, and I loved this, my Insta360 camera, but this specifically had the like cold shoe mount, which was great because just to attach it and take it off was really, really quick. So I brought that in to show that. But I would quickly take that off, throw this in the little case, and then pop that into my tank bag. So that way I wasn't leaving the camera on the motorbike. I'd have spare batteries for the 360. And these are just pills because I'm like old, but also because you wanted quick access to them. And otherwise, I found if I left them in my like toiletries kit, I'd forget to take them. And so this was always with me. Just some Kleenex. So that was in there. Sunscreen, I would typically keep either in the tank bag or in my jacket. This is a little case just for spare cards. So as you're going throughout the day, you might run out of memory on your cards. So I'd have that ready to go. I threw a charger in here. This was actually for the trip home. I also used this as my carry-on. So I'd have my one big case here and then this as my carry-on. And so I had a charger and an adapter that I kept in here. And then I just had a couple rags. So I had one for cleaning my helmet, cleaning the visor. I had one for cleaning the lenses. And then I kept a spray bottle, which was really, really handy. So anytime I'd stop, I'd quickly spray down the cameras or I'd spray off my helmet. That really, really helped. I had my Zoleo. So this is one of the things that like I was always happy to have, but at the same time, did I need it? I found actually that a lot of the time I was in cell service. I used Iralo, which is a really cool multi-country subscription app that's like an eSIM. And I found most of the time that's all I needed. So while I had this, I never once sent a message. Still nice to have, so I probably still would keep it, but something to keep in mind there. Chapstick, I'd keep a flashlight. And then I came to two things that I really felt worked well. One, I kept a pen handy, so that was good. But this, man, this thing was such a hero, such a lifesaver, and I tried to keep it super accessible. So this is just one, there's lots of them available on Amazon, but this is one of those tire pumps. It's a portable battery operated tire pump. You just screw this on and then it auto shuts off once it's reached the pressure that you've set. I never got a flat on the trip, but a couple of my buddies did. And man, this thing was such a hero. I always wanted to keep this super accessible because otherwise I find I just don't change the tire pressure if it's like under my seat or whatever. So I kept that there. And then the other thing that I added kind of halfway through the trip is I started wearing a backpack with the water bladder, but I changed it. And this is an idea that Moscow, I think, gets absolutely right. But I put a water bladder in the tank bag, which is great because then it's not on your back. You're going to be riding for long periods of time and you are going to want to drink. But wearing that backpack all the time, you know, for long days, it's really nice to put the heavy water in the tank bag and not on your back. On the top here, so this is where I had just some like wet wipes. This is where I kept like a little like change pouch, which was really, really great for all the coins that you're going to end up getting. I had that and I had a spare kind of like burner wallet, we'll say. That never happened. So that's one of the things that like, I'm sure it does happen to people, and I do think it is nice to have those things there. But I also think it is, after doing this trip, I think those things are a bit blown out of proportion. So do keep that in mind. I also kept this phone here. This one is like just an old phone. I was using it occasionally. Honestly, if I were to do this again, I would actually like to look at getting one of those Apple CarPlay mirroring pieces that actually mount to the bike rather than doing that, because then that way it could stay on the bike the entire time, on and on. Oh, and spare keys. It does have a little compartment underneath where I kept an old passport, just if I needed it, and some like copies of my documents. So this was all stuff that like when I got to the border, hey, I've got like electronics, just a place to store things, and I would take that with me so that way I'm not leaving stuff on the motorbike. On the sides of the bike, I got these bags. Okay. So this is a Kriega 10-liter bag, and I just rigged up with some straps and some clips, just a way to rig it up, just to loop it around the crash bars on my bike. It worked great, actually. The only thing that sucked was, if you watch my one video, day 2 of the trip, a bag just like this one, and the tail bag that I have got stolen off the back of the bike. I never had anything else stolen on the trip, and that's hilarious because that was done in the States, and everywhere else, you're hearing all these places about, oh, don't go there, you're going to get robbed. Didn't happen. I then replaced this with, it's called a Rhino Walk bag. What's really funny about this is like they are near identical. This bag is, oh man, a few $100s at least. I'm not going to quote it on the price. And this one was like $30. Definitely the Kriega is way better quality. But man, if you just want something cheap that you're not really worried about, the Rhino Walk stuff on Amazon is pretty amazing. Let me just dive into this bag really quickly here, see what's in here. So this one I kind of left on the bike pretty much the entire time. Occasionally I would undo the straps. I'd just quickly undo the straps, and then if I took out this bag, I just tuck it in there and lock that so it was there. This one was like a lot of like things that I wouldn't need, I hoped I didn't need, but I wanted to make sure that I had. So first off, okay, so this is like a little waterproof bag that goes inside the giant loop tank bag. I didn't find I used this, even though it would have made it more waterproof, because it's a whole nother layer to unzip. So this was originally, I had all my like food storage. I had a whole bunch of food in this. So I had like some of those freeze-dried meals. One of the biggest things that I would do differently in the future, it's not a BDR, you're going to be stopping, you're going to be wanting to eat out, and eating out is just generally going to be cheaper. So I don't think I would bring nearly as much cooking gear. I might bring just more snacks, but probably not really any cooking gear at all. And the same kind of goes for camping gear. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Hotels are so cheap in Central and South America that's not even worth really getting everything out. I camped maybe not even a dozen times. And most of those times it was in the United States, actually. There was a couple really cool spots that I camped in South America, but like you could just rent that gear if you wanted to do that. This was just like spare bits for like cameras and like GoPros, like just mounts and things like that. Tire pressure gauge. So I had that. Again, wanted to keep that nice and handy. So I just kept extra straps, so these are just like the small rock straps. These are some, I don't even know what you call these, but they just kind of loop around. I used these quite a bit. So I would highly recommend a couple extra straps just because you never know. And the other thing that I probably would bring in the future would be a couple tie down straps for the motorbike, like actually like ratchet straps. And that's easily something that I could have tucked in here as well. So that would have been nice. Okay, med kit. Didn't use it. I think I used a Band-Aid once. Didn't use it, but obviously you're going to bring that one every time. Then the last thing in here, something that I got as a gift, and I really like it. And I've brought it on multiple BDRs and things like that. I never once needed it. It's like a combination shovel and like it can turn into like a little hatchet and saw and this sort of thing. I've often thought, okay, well, one, you might need a shovel just for, if you need to use the washroom in the backcountry, but also potentially if I need to like dig myself out or something like that. I've never needed to use a shovel to recover my motorbike. Truck, totally different story, but never for the motorbike. For the backcountry stuff, yeah, I might bring one of those like tiny little shovels in the future, just in case. But this is pretty heavy. So this one, like I say, was generally staying on the motorbike. It was not a bag that I was getting into very often. This one, on the other hand, so I changed this one, and originally I had like water storage in here and like my food storage. But then what I started to notice was like, man, there's some things that I would need in the hotel that I couldn't fit in here. And so I started changing that up. And this bag, the way that I had it set up, this one was really quick to actually bring in. So when I'd go in at night, I'd bring in my tank bag around my shoulder, I'd bring in this bag, and I'd bring in this bag. And that was it. Everything else basically stayed on the bike in the Panniers or whatever, or if we're staying for a long period of time, everything would come in. And of course, we would make sure that we were staying in places where the bike would be secure in this spot. If I didn't feel it was secure, everything was coming in. So in this bag, I started carrying things that, hey, I might want just for the night. One of these was a packable rain jacket. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I have my like big Gore-Tex motorbike layer for the jacket, but that would often be tucked in here, and it's just also big. So I didn't want to bring it in all the time. And so I got this one when I ended up coming home for 10 days. And I used it quite a bit. So it was super nice if I was going out. It was cold, just another extra layer. But also when it was raining. And it's just something that on a BDR, I just never even really thought of. In here, I have just a pair of running shoes. So I did want running shoes rather than just like flip-flops because you are going to be doing a lot more walking and things like that. So one thing I would recommend would be getting some like waterproof running shoes. So I have a new pair of these that are like Gore-Tex, would have been really, really helpful. I did originally bring some like boots, and I'm still torn on whether or not I'd like to bring hiking boots or not. The hiking boots would be nice. One of the things that I did do was, and it's not done here because I couldn't have liquids on the plane when I shipped the bike back, but I would tuck my like a full size bottle of shampoo and like hair product in there. I mean, like sunscreen. That's what it was. So, and then I would just tuck them in because you'd want to maximize your space. So I'd put those in there, and then that would all come in. So these are all things that I'd want when I'm in the hotel. And oh yeah, and then I had a spoon, like one of the like combination spork spoon sort of things. In the front, I think I just had some like some spare plastic Ziploc bags, which were really, really helpful. The other thing that I've got actually a leftover one here and here is in a lot of hotels in Central and South America, you're not going to get soap or shampoo. So what I started doing was hanging on to those when I would go, when they would have them and I didn't use them, or if I had extra, so that when I got to the next hotel, if you get 2 or 3 bars at one place, you'd have them. The other thing to keep in mind, this is as a little aside, toilet paper. Make sure you've got extra because a lot of the times they just don't have them at restaurants or you got to buy it or whatever. So that's a funny thing that was totally new, a new experience to me to keep in mind. So this was the one that would generally stay on the motorbike. It typically had my rain layers on there folded up, but since they're out, I have a lot more space in here. I originally was using this for like a laundry bag, but ended up doing something a little bit different with my laundry. And so, but just, it was nice to have as an extra. It's one of those packable down jackets. This was like also like a hero of the trip. Packs down really small, especially when you get down to Ushuaia. Man, it got cold. Even though we were there in their summer, it, definitely it was cold. So it was really nice to have that for like around town. Towel. Normally this actually stayed in the big dry pack for like camping. Again, I don't even know if I used this once. Still would be handy to have just for like beach days if you're doing that. So something I would still bring for sure. Heated vest. I did actually use this as I was getting close to Ushuaia, and I definitely used it on the way home. We saw like around 7-8 degrees Celsius in Ushuaia during their summer. These things I normally kept in my other bag, so I think I've packed them a little bit differently as I got home. Just a Yeti cup, which was kind of nice to have for just, you're in a hotel or whatever and you want a drink. Nice to have it, just kind of keep things going. Normally lived in this bag. I had a little water filter that got stolen in the one bag. I got the little Grail water filter bottle, which is kind of nice because it also filters viruses. This was handy for just, hey, if I want to if I was worried about like brushing my teeth or just having a drink and I could use the tap water. So I did like that because it does actually filter viruses. They're heavy for backpacking and stuff like that, but I did like it. What I will say though is, did I need this? Honestly, probably just bottled water and topping up the water bladder that I had in the tank bag was typically more than enough. So, this was a little gift from Jorg. We all did like a gift exchange. So we did the Ruta 40 in Argentina. It's kind of the only souvenir I got from the entire trip. Spare gloves. These are the ones I wore 90% of the time. I have some like winter gloves, but either way, whichever gloves I weren't wearing, they'd live in here. Jet boil. Okay. So this comes back to my thing about camping gear and cooking gear. The only times I used this was when I was actually in a hotel with my wife. If I were to do this again, maybe I would bring something, but it'd be a lot smaller than this, which is actually still pretty small. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would bring camping or cooking gear. Instead, I think I'd just bring snacks. I don't know, unless I was intentionally going to be camping and I knew I was going to be camping, I wouldn't bring it again. It was just so cheap to stay in a hotel. I think I'd still bring maybe very minimal camping gear just in case, but it would be way, way less. A little rain hood for my jacket. This is a spare headlight. My wife brought this down for me. I didn't actually swap it. My low beam did burn out, but I didn't swap it because I just didn't have a really great place to swap it. Something to keep in mind that a spare bulb would be handy to bring. This is a USB charger that plugs into an SAE. I didn't use this once. Found that just charging either in the hotel at night or off of the other USB charger that I had was more than enough for everything I needed. I really liked this. This was actually good. This was like my little Pelican case full of spares. So I have had the fuel pump on my motorbike fail before. So I had a spare fuel pump in the motorbike, and I think I also had like a spare oil filter change in there. So that was like kind of my case of spares in the Pelican case to kind of keep things from getting crushed. This here is normally something that would actually live in my tank bag, but this is the loop earplugs piece. So this is their little case. Their case sucks, but the earplugs are amazing. I highly recommend them. They were amazing. I always wear earplugs when I'm riding, and they were so good. They just come in and out really quickly and easily. My ears didn't hurt. They blocked everything, and I could actually listen to my music a little bit more because they'd let certain sounds in. And this is something that I prepared for, and I thought I was going to need it more. So this would have been really helpful in Central America. I didn't really need it in South America. So this is a whole bunch of copies of like my passport, my driver's license, my insurance. I have like that's how many copies I have. And in Central America, you'll need that many. In South America, I didn't need it at all. But what was nice about having this was then it became a spot where I could kind of keep some documents. For example, like my Fin del Mundo certificate, or things like that. Ideally, as a change that I would make, I'd like to put this in a backpack that, as a waterproof backpack that I would strap to the back of the motorbike rather than tucking it in here. So on top, kind of keeping things accessible. The biggest thing, so this is my like 38-liter case, and right on top, I'd have the drone. So I didn't fly the drone as much as I would have liked, generally because all the places that you want to fly the drone, you're not really allowed to fly the drone. As I started riding with more people, I didn't want to like, oh, hey, I'm going to go fly the drone and let's just hang out for 20 minutes, that sort of thing. But I did keep it as accessible. So when I opened the case, that was the first thing that was there and I could grab it. One change that I would make is that I would like to actually have a top case. I'm generally against top cases because it's putting a lot of weight in the kind of worst places, high and in the back. But on this trip, it's not a BDR. You're not like I did a few days of off-road and that was about it. And so weight wasn't as much of an issue. So I would actually prefer larger cases and add a top case for the extra security rather than running a soft dry bag. And the reason why I say that now is that I would put this and my laptop, DJI Mini 3, great drone, absolutely love it. Right next to it, this was a bag that has all my like electronic cables and things like that. Not pictured in here or not in here right now are some hard drives that like the little mini hard drives that would go in there and a little like USB hub and all that sort of stuff. This was like an Eddie Bauer, like kind of like Lycra mid-layer hoodie, or no, like non-hoodie thing, like zip up. This is so good. I absolutely love that. The one thing that I would add, and one of the big changes that I'd make, again, this is not a BDR, I would actually bring more clothes. I brought so little, and I only brought one mid-layer. I'd actually love to bring another like fleecy, sort of like a little bit heavier mid-layer, just for on those colder days. And also to have a bit of a change, because I wore this like, oh God, almost every day. this is my laundry bag, so I just put all the laundry bag in here. For clothes, I generally, what did I have? I had 6 pairs of socks and underwear, and that was it for 5 months. Honestly, I would have gone for more. And again, this is going against what so many people say. So that way you're not having to do laundry all the time. I've gone on longer trips where I had, like three and I'd be washing them every day, but like it's so annoying to be doing that all the time. And so that's probably one of the biggest changes that I would make would be a little bit more clothes, including things like a pair of jeans. Oh my goodness. But when you're going out and you're like walking around, you're going into town, do you really want to be wearing just the one pair of synthetic pants that you've had for 4 months and they've been washing? So those little changes actually make such a huge difference. This is a little GoPro thing that's got the little cold shoe again, so I use that for the 360. I used that a few times. It was okay. This was another little thing that, like, oh my goodness, you want to go on Amazon? You want to look at this? This is so good and something you don't necessarily think about, but it was just an extension cable for when you get into the hotel, and it's got some USB things on the side, and you can plug in here, here, and a couple others here and here. The biggest thing that's really great about this is, man, there's usually never enough plugs, but also now you can actually put it, like on the nightstand where sometimes you're having to plug in your phone, across the room or whatever. First world problems, I know, but like, man, this was awesome. Toiletries kit. One big change I would make was I had my like razor just for, beard trimming, but it ran on 110. And so a lot of the stuff in South America is 220. So for a long time, I couldn't charge it. But hey, it actually held the charge for quite a long time. Inside that, one of the things that I did do really, that I really like, and I'm actually bring it out. If you want to save yourself some money, this is a little like clothesline, packs up really small. And then I'd have these little Tide packs. So when it came to if I just needed to do like, you know, socks and underwear laundry, just do those in the sink, hang them up, much to the annoyance of my roommate, but it saved money. And if you get the like quick dry merino wool stuff or whatever, it wasn't really a big deal. In here, so one big change that I did differently on this trip was I did packing cubes for kind of everything. And I switched up. I initially started packing where it's like, okay, this packing cube is for like one full outfit, and this packing cube is for one full outfit. But as I was using all this merino wool stuff, you'd end up wearing shirts for multiple days. But I typically change my like socks and underwear every day. So I started changing that around where I'd put socks and underwear in the red bag so that I knew that that's where it was. And then I'd put instead like warm weather gear, like warm weather clothing and cold weather clothing in another one. This one was just for like shirts. So I had like long sleeve shirts. In this one, again, I had 3 merino wool shirts and 2 long sleeve. I'd probably go for a few more. Again, man, wearing 5 shirts for 5 months, and really only three for a long period of that time, it was nice to come home to just having a few more clothes. So this was generally where I kept kind of like the cold weather clothing. I would totally go for a couple thick pairs of socks and a couple light pairs. And then I also had like the neck buffs. I always ride with a neck buff just to kind of keep wind and stuff off your neck. I had multiple of those and they were handy. Socks and underwear. Okay, and then this is basically all that I had for like pants and shorts. So I had, look at that, I bought a pair of jeans on the road because we were going out we're going out and like sightseeing or whatever, just going out for dinner. And like, it was nice to have something that, was a little more dressy-ish. And so I would have actually loved to have added I would actually love to have added a bit like of like a button-down dress shirt, so that if I was going out somewhere nice, which we did a couple of times, that I had something like that. Swimsuit, and then I basically had the one long pair of like kind of more technical pants, and that's all I had for the longest time until I got the jeans, and then I had 2 pairs of shorts. Beyond that, in this case, I also kept, normally my laptop would be in here, but I've actually got it stationed up here, and I just tucked it along the side. I had this, which is a little like pack down backpack. And then in a little bag here, I kept my just flip-flops. And then another thing that I never thought I would bring on a motorbike trip, but oh my goodness, I found out really quickly that I wanted it was a small umbrella because you're going to be out walking around, you're going to be sightseeing, and it's nice to have something like that. So next is the big dry bag. And man, I would change so much about this. So one of the things I probably, as I said, I'd like to run a top case. And if I were going to run a dry bag, and again, it'd be a really, really small one. Likely, I'd try to avoid that. I'd try to have it so that all the gear that I had is generally lockable gear. So that way, when you're walking away from the bike, you're not worried about it as much. I know it's not totally secure, but it does give you that little peace of mind for someone just to kind of do a quick grab there versus like, oh, I'm scoping out the bike and things like that. So this bag lived on the back. I did add a pack safe halfway through the trip, and that helped with a little bit of added security for sure, a little bit more peace of mind, but I still would prefer, just for ease of access, a top case. In here, I had a dry bag. Normally, my sleeping bag was living in this dry bag, even though it's in a dry bag. But I think the last time I packed it, I was using this to put my like boots on top of the motorbike when I was flying at home. So that's why it's not in there. Sleeping bag. Okay, so this is all the camping gear. Again, if I were going to bring camping gear to South America and I wasn't planning on camping, if you're planning on camping, that's different. But if I wasn't planning on camping, which I really wasn't specifically planning on camping, yeah, I'd maybe bring like the smallest gear that I could get, like a really, really light sleeping bag. This one's not bad, but it's not great either. And like the tiniest little tent, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't even. Pack safe. So this was handy just to have, and I wrapped it around the whole bag, and that just kind of gave it a little bit of peace of mind. This was a backpack that I bought on the road. This one came with a rain cover. It was like 20 bucks at Walmart. It's not the one that I had that I liked. I had like a Klein backpack that I loved, but it got stolen. So this one, honestly, even though I didn't use it day-to-day riding like I normally do on BDRs, it was nice to have for like day excursions. When we go up to like Machu Picchu, to have like your camera gear, but also, sometimes you're gonna be leaving your bike and actually going. So we took the train up to Aguascalientes. And so we left all our stuff and I just took this as like a weekend bag. So even though I didn't use it that much, I do recommend having some little like day bag for those kind of like day trips, but also for, if you're going to be going somewhere. And then, so this is where it's going to get a little disorganized because my stuff was stolen. So I had to make do with what I had. So this is my tent that's in just a generic dry bag that I found. Normally it would pack down a little bit smaller than this. But yeah. So again, if I were to camp, I would want, God, like just the tiniest tent that I could get, like a little one-person tent or something like that, just as a shelter, just as an emergency thing. So then poles normally be in a bag there. This is some 3M stuff. Now, it's like clear plastic protective tape. I have it with me because I got it for on the road and I just like hung on to it because I had the space. But I put this around the VIN number on the motorbike because my tank bag strap was starting to wear the numbers off. So it was just a protective thing because you wanted to make sure that it could be read. So that's a little tip that may be something you want to have to make sure you've got something covering your VIN numbers there just in case. They're going to be checking that for sure. Oh yeah, this is the ground sheet for the tent and like a tarp. Helionox chair. Okay, this is the big one. This is the comfortable one. I love it. I 100% will continue to bring this on BDR trips. I used it once in 5 months. If I was worried about it, or if I was going to bring camping gear again, or if I was like, I'm just bringing the emergency camping gear, I would get just those little seat pads. And then I wouldn't bring my sleeping mat. And I just sleep on the sleep pad rather than the sleeping mat for some comfort. And just leave this, and leave this as well. I try to make it fit in like a tiny little bag so that, if it got stolen, no big deal, but also that if there is an emergency, whatever. And I just leave it kind of locked on the bike the entire time. So I'm not really worried about it. This is like a pillow and like a liner and like a little pump for the pad and on and on. Great, and I was super comfortable the nights that we were camping, but this would be like, no, I'm out. Tarp, and then there's my poles, and then you can see I never even bothered to use this. This is just some like paracord or whatever. Okay, that's that's it. That's everything that I brought. So I know this is kind of like, man, a bit of a disorganized thing about as I'm coming home, just kind of ripping through everything, but I needed to finally unpack this. I wanted to keep this in mind for myself. But here are the things that I would totally change. So again, we talked about the idea you want to keep things accessible. You want to make sure that you can grab stuff quickly when you need it. But the biggest thing that I would do differently is the fact that I just try to recognize that this is not a BDR. 95% of the trip was done on highway. And when you're doing like off-road stuff on a BDR, backcountry discovery route, weight like really, really counts. And you want to, so that's where like, soft bags are really important and things like that. But on this trip, like most people that I ran into, very few people that I ran into were actually running soft bags. And so this kind of goes against what a lot of people say. Like there's a few people online that I'm seeing like, oh, I'm traveling around the world and this is what I run for around the world. And it's like, great, that's good for you. I want to be comfortable. I want to actually go and explore and get off the bike a little bit. And so I would definitely do a top case for sure, would be one of the big things that I would do. Larger side bags probably in general. So I'd probably go for I have the like 31 and 38. I'd probably go for the 38 and the 45. And then I'd actually try to pack them not full. So you've got some room and so that you're not trying to like jam everything in a certain way and things like that. Yeah, you get really good at doing it and it gets pretty quick. But okay, this is getting to be a really, really long video here. That's it. That's what I've got. Those are the changes that I would make. You want to try to pack as little as possible. A lot of people end up packing way, way, way too much. I went way too much, not on the clothing gear on this trip, but on the camping and the cooking gear and the stuff that it was like, I might use it. And I just didn't. So keep that in mind. And that's a lesson that I had to learn just because I'm so used to riding on the BDR where you are camping all the time and you don't need a lot of clothing because you're generally in your riding gear. But beyond that, I was quite happy with all the other stuff that I did. So at any rate, this is enough of me rambling. If you want to see more of the videos of actually on that trip, check out, I've got a couple of playlists online there. Otherwise, thanks for watching.